Alrighty, I believe we're on the air now. We're ready. I think. I don't really know. Okay, so we've got everything ready today, everything set up except for the intro, obviously, or else that would have played. Now I'm getting used to the new setup. Okay, so we're gonna start with the PowerPoint, I guess. Nothing to talk about last week because there wasn't anything, and we didn't do bets a couple weeks ago, so I guess we'll jump right on into the new setup. Hopefully this works. Is it gonna work? Doesn't look like it. What the fuck? Oh my goodness. Why is it not? What the fuck? It's supposed to switch scenes, but it's not doing that. Maybe if I go into here... This shit is fucking ridiculous. There we go. See, now it's going, but then the camera's not working. That's fun. So we're gonna fix that. I don't know why this technology keeps fucking with me constantly. Absolutely insane. Okay. That's not the right thing. Deactivate, activate, and here we go. Why it does that, I have no fucking idea, but here we are. And then now... everything should be okay. Okay. So now we can jump right on into it. I think just so that I don't have a bunch of lag, I'll switch back to the old settings. Still working? Sick. Okay. Now we should be good. As you can see, the PowerPoint's there. I'm here. We're all good. The lighting's good. Hopefully everything will start working now. Okay. So, the first segment that we're going to be doing is every week we're going to be going through the best bets from last week. Of course, didn't get to do that for you guys last time, but I'll show you the bets that I made for UFC 297. I did make them, so I'll show you what they were, and then we can review that, and then that's basically going to set us up for what we're going to be doing this week, which is the first week that we're, of course, going to be having all the new graphics, all the new other stuff, and of course, just the new way of doing things, which is giving somebody the edge. But we'll get into the edge later. First, we'll go through the best bets, which, of course, we've talked about quite a bit before. The first one being the triple play, of course. And we'll just recap what we've done in the past. So that includes UFC 297 and everything before that. So, of course, you can go and see those on YouTube. But we didn't have any graphics before, so it wouldn't be that interesting, which is why we're going to be doing a full recap now. I thought that would make the most sense. So the triple play, of course, is 3 of the best people of the week. I was going to say the 3 best, but I do break it down. So I start off with basically picking my favorite 6 fighters of the week. The triple play is A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, that's 6. So the triple play is 3 of those. I believe it's it's B, C, E. B, C, E. So I rank them all from A through F. B, C, and E is the triple play. Shockingly, that has not actually gone that well for us. Yeah, we don't have a winning record. We're still doing okay on the profit, which I'm now realizing I probably should have also put in the numbers here besides the win-loss. That's right. This is the only section that we don't have any profit in, which is going to be a little surprising when you get into the next areas. But the first one is the triple play. We're at a record of 5-7. So, I mean, it's a losing record. Still not bad. I mean, when you consider the fact that this is 3 fighters at the same time in a single card, and we've got a record of 5-7 with them. Not bad at all. I mean, it's just a slight loss. If you go to the numbers. Again, I don't have the numbers up here. That is something that I will put up for next week, because that was one of the things I forgot, obviously. So next up is, of course, the Grand Slam. Then you would have, I believe it's A, B, D, F off the top of my head. I believe those are the letters. So that includes, of course, the sniper pick, and then B, D, F. Which, if you were paying attention, B is in both of the parlays, and then I put the sniper pick by themselves, and then in the Grand Slam. So I do separate them a little bit. You want to spread out the risk a little bit, but A and B are usually pretty solid for me. So this is the most surprising part to me. The triple slam, the triple play was 5-7, but the Grand Slam 7-5. Can you believe it? I'm actually better at picking 4 fighters to win in one night than I am at picking 3 fighters to win in one night. How that works out statistically, shocking, honestly. But that's where we've ended up, and of course that has given us a profit, because I mean, really, if you're 7-5 on 4-leg parlays, you're obviously making money with them. So that is very good. That is a strong point so far for us. Then we've got the next one, our next best bet, which is the top dog. That is my favorite underdog of the week. And so far, that has actually gone way better than I ever could have hoped. Seriously, I really did not think that this was going to be something that was going to be going well. It's hard to pick underdogs in MMA or in any combat sport. And we've actually got a record of 9-3. 9-3. Unbelievable. Like, truly, I cannot believe that I've done that well with the underdogs. I don't want to jinx it, obviously, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. But yeah, 9-3 on the top dog. So obviously that is shockingly profitable, and by far actually the most profitable best bets section that we have so far. The top dog. Love it. I mean, that's amazing. I honestly still can't believe that I've been able to do that. 9-3. And then of course we've got the staple of everything for me, which is, of course, the sniper pick. That is my most confident pick of the week. And we have, we had a couple of slip-ups at the start of me doing this, so it's not as impressive as I would like, but it's also 9-3, shockingly enough. So my most confident pick, I'm just as accurate so far as picking an underdog. How that's worked out, I have no idea, but as I mentioned, and if you go back in the footage there, the sniper picks, we had a couple of rough weeks there where, I mean, Adesanya was my first ever sniper pick against Strickland. That was really the only one where I was like, wow, that shocked me to my core. Still don't believe it. Still would have picked Adesanya to be the sniper pick. The other 2 mistakes, it ended up being, I can't remember. It was somebody making their debut, and who was that woman? It was a women's fight that was the other one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was a huge mistake. Those 2 huge mistakes, just should not have done them, and yeah, here we are. So I really probably could have been a little bit higher, but I'll take the 9-3. I mean, that's still a decent record. And I mean, honestly, I really do believe that over the next 10, 20 episodes, we're going to be stacking up those wins in the sniper picks. And honestly, the top dog is probably going to be taking a little bit of a hit, but that's just the way the stats work out when you do stuff like that. But anyway, that's what we've got for the best bets so far. That is the recap. And just a basic explanation as well as to what those are. So yeah, that's what we have so far, all the way up until now. So if you haven't seen any of the other stuff, you're all caught up. That's everything. So we will move on. And we are going to move on to The Edge. The Edge. That is our new thing. So I won't be making a bunch of bets like I used to. That's not something I'm going to be doing anymore. I'm not going to be doing over, under, and all of these bets and money lines and all that. We're not doing that anymore. All we're doing here is focusing on the picks themselves, and then basically getting really confident picks out of this. And then you can use those picks to make your own bets. I mean, obviously, you know, I'll recommend some things along the way, but that's the basic premise of The Edge. I'm giving somebody an edge in the matchup, and yeah, you can use that wisdom as however you see fit. And I also want to give a recap. Of course, I haven't done The Edge in the past, but I did do them myself for UFC 297 in Toronto. So I'll give you a quick recap of how that went, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So, the recap. I don't give one out to every single matchup because some of them are too close. And usually in those ones, as I will mention, you would want to pick the underdog. Because really, if it's close enough that I can't tell who's going to win, you might as well go for the underdog. That's where the profit is. So that's why I'm saying there is, you know, even though I don't outright say like, hey, bet on the underdog, blah, 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 you know, you can then use that knowledge the best you can. So if I can't figure out who's going to be winning, the bet is probably just take the underdog. And again, I will say that along the way, I'm sure. Yeah, and the ones that I do pick usually end up being in the parlays. Sometimes they're actually the underdog and I pick them, so that usually ends up being the top dog. And yeah, you can add them into your own parlays, whatever, do your own thing. But yeah, the recap here is started off the night with actually my sniper pick for UFC 297, Jasmine Jasudavicius. Easy win. So that was another sniper pick that we cashed in on pretty easily. Yeah, and that was the first edge that I handed out to Jasmine. She took the win, so started off nice with a win there. Then picked the other Canadian woman on the card, Jillian Robertson. So we started off nice, 2-0, beautiful. Literally could not have gone better right there. And then took a little bit of a dip. We took a bit of an L there. Ended up going with another Canadian, Charles Jourdain. You know, we had a little bit of confusion there with the split decision. He almost got the win there, but ultimately did not get the win over Woodson there. I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought he was going to do much better in that matchup. Seemed like the otherworldly length of Woodson ended up being a huge problem there, and just couldn't get past it. I was pretty surprised. I really thought he was going to do a lot better than that. I really thought he had a fairly, I wouldn't say an easy win, but I thought he was going to have a pretty clear path to victory, especially with his grappling. That didn't really help him out, so I was pretty surprised there. Then we took another L from the Canadian, oh my god, Brad Katona. I mean, I'm not going to lie, this one was a bit of a slight edge. I considered not giving him the edge and just saying it was even, because on Tapology, I actually picked, I think I picked Armfield, yeah. I believe I picked Armfield on Tapology. Or no, I would never have done that, no. What did I do? I did something with Armfield. I think I made a bet on him as an underdog. So when I did that, I don't know why I ended up actually giving him the edge. So I don't really know. I don't know. Oh, no, maybe it was on Tapology I gave it to Armfield. So why I would have given him the edge and then picked Armfield on Tapology, I'm not really sure. Dumb. I'm an idiot in that case. But again, that was the first week I did it, and I still did pretty well, by the way. But I still made some mistakes here and there, that being one of them, because I really did think it was pretty close. But yeah, still a little surprised that it went that way. Again, not completely shocked, but still. So maybe that was a bad example of the edge in Katona's case, because I probably shouldn't have done that. But anyway, it happens. Mistakes happen. That's why I wanted to, I'm not going to hide anything like this. That is just what happened. I can't hide anything. This is what happened. These are the results. I'm very open about all that kind of stuff. So, I ended up making 8 edge picks. So those were the first 4. So we went 2-2. That's not great. That's actually honestly pretty bad in my mind. A 2-2 start. But we're moving on. The next 4. And this ended up being really the whole main card ended up being featured really next. And that started with Evloev. And that actually got pretty questionable at sometimes too. I was getting a little worried there, but kept the undefeated record going. I figured he was going to be able to do exactly what he did. But yeah, it did get a bit dicey there, especially with those knees in there. But honestly, had faith in him the whole time. Glad he picked up the win, although I do like Arnold Allen, but for the sake of this, I'm glad that Evloev won. And that brings us to 3-2. Then next up, another very close one, really. Chris Curtis got a bit dicey again there. I really thought he was going to walk through this pretty easily. I thought he was going to win a pretty obvious decision. It was honestly a lot closer than the scorecards read. I believe it ended up being 30-27 on 2 of the cards and 29-28. Don't quote me on that, because honestly, that was a couple weeks ago and I kind of forget. But I think that's how it ended up going. But yeah, still got the win though, so we're all good. But yeah, another dicey one there. Then, good God, I mean, I should have just given myself the win here, because he basically won the fight and then lost it in the last 30 seconds. I mean, good Lord. So, I mean, no regrets picking him there. I mean, I think that was the right pick. He just, oh my God, I don't have my new graphic for you blew it, but he blew it. He really did. I mean, that's the definition of blowing it, is losing in the last 30 seconds like that. For really no reason. I mean, he ended up going for a heel hook and doing some weird shit on the ground. No, like, should not have done that. Should not have done that at all. But, hopefully he learns from that, comes back better. Still, I would say the top Canadian prospect, at least for the male side. I think overall, it might actually be Jasmine. I think she is pretty clearly become the best Canadian prospect, Jasmine Jasdavicius. Malott, I would say second. He is the second best Canadian prospect. And I mean, really, like I said, I don't really know how we can shit on him too much. I mean, he literally won 14 and a half minutes of that fight and then just lost at the end. So I don't really know how you can fault him too much for that. But yeah, hurt us here, obviously, with these picks. And then finally, I actually did end up giving an underdog an edge here, and that was DDP. I picked DDP because I just thought he was going to walk through. I thought he was going to walk through Strickland. I honestly thought he was going to get a KO. I really did. I thought maybe first round, maybe second round, maybe even the third round, we were going to see a KO. Didn't end up getting the KO, and it was a very close fight. But ultimately, I think DDP won. There were some people out there that disagreed. I disagree with you. I think DDP very clearly won that. But I don't know. I thought he won 3-2. And actually, if I'm being real, I scored at a tie on verdict. I forget which round it was, but there was one 10-10 round on my cards. And then it was 2-2. So for me, it was actually a tie. But if I was going to give the edge, I did end up giving it to DDP. And on Tapology, had DDP. So I had DDP all week. So boom, there we go. And overall, if you weren't counting, that would be bringing us to the record. And this is where, of course, I'll show you the entire record of everything we've ever had. But of course, that was the first week, so you could have just counted them up. But overall, that means we're at a shiny 5-3, which isn't, well, we'll just say it's a slightly rusty 5-3, because honestly, that's not that good in my mind. But we'll take it. We'll take it. 5-3. Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, because this is just the start of it, but I fully expect to have about a 75 to 85% win rate on this. So 5-3, not great in my mind. I would have liked to start out with a 7-1 or 6-2, but some pretty shocking results there, honestly, especially with Malott. That was a bad one. And then, again, don't really know. I feel like I slightly regret picking Katona, because, again, I did have him. I believe I had him on Tapology. I'm going to have to check on that, but yeah. So, record could be better, but hey, again, it's the first week. I made some mistakes. Malott fucked up. And hey, we still got a winning record. So that really just tells you how this should be going in the future, that we will probably, well, hopefully, knock on wood, be getting a winning record every single week. Hopefully. That's how I'm hoping it's going to work out, obviously. And that is it for the recap there, which means now we get to jump in to this week's card, and that is, of course, UFC Vegas 85. Can't wait to talk about it. But my goodness, I need a drink. Ooh, okay. So, Dolidze, Imavov. That's the main event. UFC Vegas 55. Let's get it going. And the first matchup is... Oh, that's interesting that it didn't start. I thought it would have started right away. It's Peterson. And, of course, Jamal Pogues on there at heavyweight. Look at that picture. I tried to take some good screenshots. I mean, not screenshots, some good pictures from Google there. Most of them are the stock photos from UFC, but I tried to pick some good ones in there. I like that one. That's a good one from Peterson. So, first up is Peterson. Oh, interesting. My notes don't show up on here. That's fun. I wonder... Uh-oh. Oh, presenter notes. Here we go. There we go. I didn't have my fucking presenter notes up. I didn't know, because I've never done a PowerPoint on a stream before, so that's brand new. Okay. So now I got my presenter notes up here. We are good. So Peterson making his debut, and normally I don't like to put a lot of emphasis on people making their debut. I've been burned by that in the past. I've said that quite a few times on this stream. But maybe we're going to make some mistakes again this week. I don't know. But honestly, in this matchup, I mean, he seems pretty good. But anyway, we'll get into that later. I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to remember the new format, go through the data, and then give my prediction. Anyway, so he's 8-1 in his career. All finishes. Pretty incredible. 6 first-round KOs, but he's not a knockout guy. Funny enough. He is actually more of a grappler that then gets TKOs. And the one loss, by the way, not in the UFC, again, because he's making his debut, the one loss does come to somebody in the UFC, though, which is Waldo Cortez Acosta, which is a pretty fun fact. That was actually in the LFA. I watched that fight. Again, just to see what we were up against. And yeah, but the first point we're going to talk about here is the wrestling. And this is what we're going to be doing, by the way, for each person on the card. We're going to be going through just a little bit just a little bit of quick facts, and then we're going to be going through 3 bullet points for each person, just kind of giving just basically a quick summary of what each person is good at. I was supposed to explain that before, but again, I didn't have my fucking presenter notes up. So we're back now. The wrestling, that's obviously his best asset. I mean, it jumps off the page, and I mean, jumps straight at you. I mean, especially if you would have watched the Contender Series, which is the first point. He did beat Chandler Cole. If you watched The Ultimate Fighter, Chandler Cole is from The Ultimate Fighter last season, and he actually was one of the better ones. Was it? No, it wasn't last season. It was the season before, I believe. Yeah, it was a season before that. So not the one with Connor and Chandler. It was the one with Volk and Ortega. No. Oh, it was actually after. That's right. There was an in-between one with Nunes and Pena, I believe. But yeah, anyway. So he was the heavyweight one, obviously. So yeah, he was on the Contender Series fighting against Peterson. And he ended up getting a key lock. Peterson got a key lock. Very rare submission. And actually his first submission win, I believe, or maybe second submission win. Again, usually gets the... Oh, actually, it was his first submission win, because he has 7 KOs, 6 in the first round. But yeah, key lock, amazing. That's not a common thing to see. So that really just tells you how good he is, not just at the ground and pound and the wrestling, but even the submissions as well, that he got a key lock. Very, very impressive. Next point for him, though, he's very aggressive, always moving forward, super, super aggressive. And at heavyweight, that's a scary thing. That is a scary thing. And that will help him very much in this matchup specifically, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The next big point, though, the cardio, which is huge at heavyweight, especially in this matchup, and especially with that kind of style. If you got a grappling heavy style like Cormier or something, you kind of have to have the cardio to back it up. Or like a Merab, really. He's like the heavyweight Merab, if you will. I mean, maybe he's not that crazy with the pace, but still, you get it. But you gotta have the cardio base to do that. And honestly, I wasn't really sure about the cardio. Like when you look on paper, and what I said before too, 6 first round finishes, and then of course a second round finish on the Contender Series, and another second round one. You know, you kind of wonder, how is the cardio going to be, especially when Jamal Pogues tends to go later in the fight. So how does that work out? Well, I did the research for you. That's what I'm here for. And he really does have good cardio. He really does, because yes, he did lose that fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta, and it was a 5-round fight. Didn't make it to the 5th round. He was in the 3rd round. But the entire time, first round, 2nd round, and 3rd round, he was pushing hard the entire time. Like, really, you would have thought it was a 3-round fight. And remember, this is heavyweight. Like, again, not super common to see somebody do stuff like that at heavyweight. But he was pushing really hard and looked really good, truthfully, even in the 3rd round. Really, the only reason he ended up losing was because truly out of nowhere, because Peterson was winning all 3 rounds of this fight up until this point. Waldo landed a really super slick, huge combo, and then just capitalized on it, and that was it. But I mean, again, we now know how good Waldo actually is. I mean, I believe he only was a 1 loss or something like that in his career, and then because of the one in the UFC, I can't remember off the top of my head who that was, but very good at striking. He used to be a boxer, he used to be a baseball player, very much power, and accurate punches, very, very much that guy. So the fact that Peterson was able to last 3 rounds 2.5 rounds, let's say, with Waldo, and then with the cardio, and then just happen to get, finished like that right at the end of the 3rd, that tells me a lot. And remember, that was also, by the way, I believe it was 2022 or so, somewhere around there, just before Waldo actually got on the Contender Series himself. I think this actually was his last fight before that. So the win over Peterson gave him the ticket into the Contender Series, and then all Peterson had to do was get a couple of wins, and then he got the shot himself. So again, very, very good. I was very impressed. I don't usually say this about Contender Series people because you sometimes you can't really tell, but this really is one where I was actually genuinely pretty impressed because heavyweights are not normally this good this early on, especially on the Contender Series. And the odds, I think it's because he's making his debut. And again, the odds on these Vegas cards, a little bit closer usually. And you'll see that throughout the rest of the card as well. But that starts right here with minus 175. That's what he's at currently. And we will get now over to Pogues. There it is. The transition worked this time. So now we've got Pogues, has fought in the UFC before. Can't remember the record, didn't write it down, and it doesn't really matter because I didn't write it down, so clearly it doesn't matter. The first point is he's actually pretty well-rounded. For a heavyweight, he is pretty well-rounded. He easily beat Josh Parisian with the grappling, but Parisian did keep getting back up, and Parisian's not really that great. So, what does that actually mean? Probably not a whole lot. But yeah, and did have a close striking battle with Parkin in his last fight. And Parkin trains with Aspinall. We know he's kind of one of those guys in the heavyweight division that's going to be, part of that new wave that's probably going to be in the top 15 eventually. And he was close. He was close on the feet. He didn't win. He got beat on the feet there. Did beat Parisian, though, with the grappling. So, I mean, he is well-rounded. He does have the skills in both areas, but maybe not necessarily elite in either one. He's just got a good base in both, let's say. And also, by the way, he does have a black belt. They did mention that. That was another thing. He does have a black belt, so he clearly does have the submission skills, but he has been subbed twice already. So, take from that what you will. The one problem, though, is, and this is our first red point I just realized of the whole show, is that he usually has a problem with backing up. He's on the back foot quite a bit, especially when he's getting pressured by somebody like that. And what did I mention before? Peterson is very, very aggressive. So this really could be a huge problem in this matchup specifically, which is why I wrote that there. And he moves backwards quite a bit in every fight. He has done that in each fight so far. Usually lets them go first. That's not usually a good thing. I mean, sometimes, the counter fighters can do well. But in this situation, could be a bit rough. He does have durability, though. That is what I have seen. He has been hit a decent amount and hasn't seemed too rocked or extremely tired, even in the third rounds. So he does have that, and that's why... I don't even know what I was going to say there. But that's a good point for him. Point for Pogues. Yes, he is durable. He does have cardio, which is why... Oh, that's what I was going to say, which is why it's important that Peterson had that too, which is why I mentioned that earlier. For the odds for him, he's at plus 130. So again, it is pretty close. But Peterson does have the edge in the odds makers' minds. And we'll get into now who I'm giving the edge to. I think it's probably pretty clear already who I'm giving the edge to. But we'll go through it because, again, I'm not used to reading through these things in that order. And I can see already that we've been taking a very long time to do this, so I'll have to hurry up eventually. Again, this is the first time I'm doing this. We'll get into a nice rhythm next time, hopefully. But anyway, seemed pretty close at first glance. I mean, on paper, it really does seem pretty close because, you see the loss to Waldo on Peterson's side. You see the win and then the loss with Pogues. So how is he? You know, we don't really have too much of an idea on paper, at least. But when you watch the tape, it starts to be more clear, I think. Peterson's forward pressure and wrestling, you know, oh, right, fuck, okay. Again, see, I'm fucking up my own system here. Okay. Restart that. Okay. So, again, fairly close on paper. You've got Peterson's forward pressure and his wrestling, so that's a good point for him. That's his main thing. And Pogues is super durable and also well-rounded. So, you know, maybe Pogues will be able to last that out, win a decision that way, or maybe even Peterson gets tired, starts making mistakes like he did against Waldo. It's plausible. It really is. And like I said, with Pogues being durable, maybe he won't get finished like that. We'll see. We'll see. Could see Pogues winning a decision if Peterson starts to get tired, but I doubt it. That's what I wrote in my notes here. So who gets the edge? I gotta say, it's gotta be Peterson. I mean, really. What sealed it for me was the Cortez Acosta fight. He was winning most of the fight. Almost finished him in the first round, actually. Like he's finished almost all of his opponents in the first round. And I think that's actually a distinct possibility here as well. Like I said, the pressure, the forward pressure and Pogues going backwards, not a good combo. And he never really stops. And he threw Waldo around so much. And I don't think Pogues, well, actually, I mean, we've seen problems with Waldo's grappling in the past, so that's maybe not too surprising. But the surprising part was that Peterson was actually outboxing him at times too. And we know that Waldo's a boxer. So if he's kind of outboxing Waldo and also throwing him around, you know, what's going to happen here with Pogues? Probably not much, you know, probably not great looking for Pogues. And I actually think that Waldo is better than Pogues, if I'm being real. So I actually think that this is a slightly easier fight than he had in LFA. So I think he's going to get the win here, and I'm giving him the edge with the nice little flair there. Next up is the lightweight battle. Okay, now I see I didn't do it for any of them. The lightweight battle between Medeiros and Quinones. Medeiros also making his debut, I believe. Oh, yeah, debut. He is 8-1. Very good record, very good record. Split decision is the one loss. So really could be undefeated at 9-0 right now, had one other person given him the win on the cards that night. Went against Isa Isakov on the Contender Series. Was a huge underdog there. I even thought he was going to get blown away by Isakov. Then out of nowhere, he comes in there, gets one of the craziest KOs on the show. Insane knee knockout on the Contender Series over Isa Isakov. Very impressive on the Contender Series. But again, making his debut. So we'll see. Because again, I've said it before. I just said it in the last one. Sometimes you can't really tell how good these guys are coming off the Contender Series. And this is kind of one of them. So we'll see. But the striking obviously jumps off the page. I mean, like I said, the knee KO, that was insane. Really slick striking, lots of movement, lots of kicks, lots of combos, great striking defense. So that is definitely his strong suit, for sure, is the striking. He's also got a lot of speed. That goes for offense and defense. Some people are only good at one. He is very fast in both. He's very fast with his strikes and his reflexes. But it's his debut. That's what I just said before. He looks pretty great on paper and on the Contender Series, but he did have some close fights on the regional scene. Again, the split decision win, or the split decision loss, but he also had a split decision win that was somewhat questionable from what I remember, unless I'm thinking about somebody else. But I believe that was the case. And then again, You know, like some of these regional ones, you can't really tell. So if there's split decisions, that means he's having super close fights on these regional scenes. So that either means he's going against really good regional people, which could be true. It's lightweight as well, so that could be true. But it also could mean he's not going against the best competition and he could get exposed in this debut. You never know. You never know. But the odds right now are in favor of him, minus 138 for Medeiros. Next up is Quinones. Waiting for it to pop up there. His first loss in his career, I didn't know this until, of course, I always do my research and everything. His first loss was actually Mohamed Naimov, who is still in the UFC. Very, very good. That was his first loss, and it was a split decision. I need to sneeze right now. And we're back. Had to mute myself there. First loss was a split decision to Mohamed Naimov. Then second loss to Jason Knight on Tough in less than a minute. I mean, honestly, when I was watching it too, and even before, I was kind of like, well, Quinones should be able to win this pretty easily. And then he lost in less than a minute. And honestly, just watching it too was kind of like, oh, I see exactly what happened here. He just made a silly mistake because it was, probably because of the whole situation. I mean, it's dead quiet. You got McGregor there. You got Chandler there. It's a weird scenario. It's a huge deal for you. You're going against somebody experienced in Jason Knight. You're making your kind of, debut a little bit on Tough. So, the pressure's on. Lost in less than a minute with just a submission loss. I mean, it just kind of came out of nowhere. He got caught and that was it. Nothing really else to say. And then what ended up happening actually is they pretty clearly, I know what happened after this. They asked him if they wanted to grapple, to prove that he can grapple, I should say, and to prove that was just a silly mistake that won't happen again. He ended up going in a grappling match, and then he ended up winning that. And clearly the UFC was like, okay, yeah, we get it. That was just a silly mistake. We understand. We'll give you the fight in the UFC. And that is how he got that first fight against Nasrat Haqparast, which is his second career loss, because technically the Jason Knight one was on Tough, so it doesn't count because it's an exhibition. Whatever. I mean, it's a real fight, but whatever, whatever. Semantics, technically 2 losses now anyway. But anyway, and that was, by the way, a very, very close fight, which is why this is honestly a pretty close matchup. It really is. But anyway, so his first point is his striking always moves forward. Really always has that pressure. Very good striking. Close fight with Nasrat, using that striking. And lots of kicks. Really, really use those kicks. But he did also get hit quite a bit by Nasrat. And he did get rocked there. So, But again, that's true UFC caliber fighter in Nasrat. So we know how good Nasrat is. And we know, Quinones had a good fight with him. That's why, he proved that he does have the striking, especially at a UFC level, and that's why we're a little bit worried on the other side. But anyway, next point does he have the BJJ? Does he? Not really sure, again, because I'm only saying that really because of what happened on Tough. I don't even know if it'll come into play here. Medeiros, really more of a striker, so will it even come into play here? No idea. And that's why it's kind of a question mark, is it a factor? Is it even a problem? Because that was kind of a freak thing, and he did have the grappling match after that he won. So is it a problem? Is it not? We'll find out. Yeah. And then definitely super tough. He is very tough. We saw that in the Nasrat fight. I mean, Nasrat did hit him quite a bit. He looked rocked in the second and still kept going. And Nasrat, believe me, he was trying to get a finish there. But he fought through that, still threw back the rest of the fight. Incredible fight. So very, very durable. And that definitely could come into play with the striking of Medeiros. So who's getting the edge here? Well, the odds, of course, plus 110. And see, this is why it's nice to have these graphics, because it also reminds me of things that I forgot to say, which was the odds, plus 110. So very, very close. Even the odds makers have it very, very close. But again, most of them are close this week. So who has the edge here? Well, again, very, very close on the cards, in the odds, on tape, on Tapology, just close all around. Yeah, so really could go either way, because Medeiros is going to hit him quite a bit. Quinones is really tough, though, and did very well against Nasrat. He really did. So really, the question then is, can Medeiros deal with the pace and pressure for 3 rounds? You know, he's lost a split decision before. He's had these really close fights before. If he doesn't get a finish, can he keep up that pace? Can he beat somebody who had that close of a fight with Nasrat? I don't really know. Or will Quinones get knocked out because Medeiros has that power? I mean, he's never been knocked out before, but you never know. Never say never. So, well, I just did. You never know. So yeah, who am I giving the edge in this case? Nobody. This is the first one where I'm not giving out an edge. It is too close to call. There's really too many questions on either side. Quinones looks really good, had that good fight against Nasrat. Medeiros looked good on the Contender Series, and he looks good on paper. But again, we haven't seen him actually fight anybody yet. Really. I mean, that's just true. We have not seen him fight anybody of this level yet. So it's honestly way too close to call, which would mean, and this is where, of course, I'm re-emphasizing what I said before, the smart bet then would be to bet on the underdog, which in this case is Quinones. That's what this would mean. So there you go. Next up, the next fight is Julia Stoliarenko and Luana Carolina at flyweight. Had to check that one out because I forgot what weight class they were in. Could have been bantamweight, honestly. They're both pretty big. So yeah, we'll jump right on into that with Stoliarenko. Her first point here is that she's got very good submissions, and not just, I don't even know if I should say that as a plural. She has very great submission. She has probably the best armbar out of anybody. Well, unless, of course, you count like Ronda Rousey or something like that. 8 out of her 11 wins. How is that even possible? 8 out of her 11 wins have come by armbar. 8 out of 11. Not even just submissions. Not even just 8 out of 11 of her wins are submissions. 8 out of 11 are an armbar. She is that good at it. Which is great because she's clearly very good on the ground. But if she doesn't get an armbar, you know, you never know at that point. But she does have another advantage in general, and that's her size. I mean, good Lord. She is big for the weight class, which has been a problem in the past, by the way. You know, I don't want to hold that against her. That's why I've added it as a plus here, is her size, because she has shown that she can get down to 125. She did fight Molly McCann and won with, funny enough, an armbar. But yeah, so I can't really, you know, she has had the problems with weight cuts in the past, but overcame that, did really well at 125 against Molly McCann. So I'm just putting all that in the past, you know, focusing on the now, which is she's back at 125. But again, the point is, though, she is very big. She did fight at catch weight at 140 pounds against Chelsea Chandler. She did lose that fight. Probably not even because of the size, honestly. It was more so because Chelsea Chandler just kept walking her down with bombs. But yeah, the size will really help her in general, and probably in this matchup as well. The one glaring problem, though, is her striking. She really is not a good striker. That is my only note that I even wrote down here. She is not good at striking at all. Really has never been good at striking. So that is a problem. That is a huge problem for sure. And the odds right now are pretty close. Excuse me, minus 138 for Stoliarenko. So we move on to Luana Carolina. She is 4-3 in the UFC, which is a pretty good record. Has had some fairly high-profile fights. I mean, well, maybe not high-profile fights, but fights against people in the top 15 that are, you know, fairly well-known, including one of those losses by split decision, by the way, to Joanne Wood, which is pretty impressive. I mean, Joanne Wood should have had the title shot, kind of botched that, never got her title shot, which sucks because she's a cool person, should have gotten the title shot, never got it. But that just speaks to how good Joanne Wood is, and also then how good Carolina can be, because she did have a split decision against Wood, and to be honest, I kind of thought she won, but whatever, I digress. And she does, by the way, also have a win over Cachoeira. Maybe not that impressive now, but still somewhat impressive. Lupi Godinez used her size against Lupi Godinez, got a win there. Botelho, don't hear much about Botelho anymore, but has the win there. And in her last fight, fought an undefeated prospect coming in and beat her as well. So she does have some good wins in there. She really does. And I just wanted to say that first off, before I gave all of my bullet points there. Again, I'm going to be doing this for some of them. Just give a little bit of a brief overview that I think is somewhat important to the person that we're talking about. The first point, I mean, obviously has got to be the striking. She was knocked out by Molly McCann in London. So, you know, we'll take that, you know, by what you will. But why did I write it like that? Okay. Oh, I had multiple different ones. Whoopsie. So I didn't quite finish my point from before. Whatever. Anyway, it includes it in the striking. Anyway. Somewhat odd striking. She looks weird when she's striking. It's clunky. It's kind of like DDP, if I'm being real. She's like the female DDP, from what I can tell. So unconventional, but it really does work. And she lands quite a bit. I mean, clearly, because that's how she's gotten all of her wins. And that's even how she beat the undefeated girl in her last fight. And very good at clinch, which could definitely come in handy in this matchup specifically. The one problem, though, the grappling. So this is definitely a striker versus grappler matchup. I mean, it's about a striker versus grappler as you can get, really, because Luana definitely has the striking, doesn't really have the grappling. Stoliarenko very clearly has the grappling, but definitely does not have the striking. Has been taken down easily in the past. That has been a problem. And she has been submitted once. Also has been caught in some pretty bad spots on the ground in the past, but didn't get submitted. So, you know, when you see things like that, it's like, well, she didn't get finished, but she was close to getting finished, and she was in some pretty bad spots. So, you know, good, but also not good. But in this case, it's an obvious downside. So I wrote that. And, that would be the other point that I was going to say earlier, which is that she was submitted by Lipsky with a nasty knee bar. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was disgusting. But yeah, so yeah, definitely a downside for her. And another benefit, though, she does have very good cardio. no problems whatsoever with going 3 rounds at a decent pace, which again could very well come in handy in this matchup. And her odds are set at plus 110. So again, very, very close. So who is getting the edge in this case? Well, as I mentioned, it is a striker versus grappler matchup, pretty much. Carolina can pretty easily win by decision because of her cardio, because of the striking, because of the clinch. And, you know, she does have some defense down there as well. So she definitely could win the decision. I could really see that happening. And then, of course, Stoliarenko very clearly can get an armbar, if anything. Very clearly can win by sub, or even just with her grappling. Like I said, Carolina can be taken down easily, has been taken down easily in the past. So it could happen again. It could happen again. And with this size advantage, because she definitely has a size advantage here, that could be a problem. So who am I giving the edge to? Nobody again. Sorry for anybody who's disappointed by all these even ones, but honestly, they're both very inconsistent. They are both extremely inconsistent and have gaping flaws in their game. I mean, Carolina gets taken down somewhat easily. I mean, Stoliarenko's striking is not good at all. So really, there's no real way to tell what's going to be happening in this one. I am slightly kind of leaning towards Stoliarenko just because of the grappling and the size, but it's really not. I mean, it is so close that you might as well just go with Carolina because she's the underdog. Yeah, but I need to see more from Stoliarenko. And then again, and I even wrote this here too, especially with the names that Carolina has beaten and had close fights with. Joanne Wood, Cachoeira, Lupi Godinez. Those are names. And Stoliarenko, not so much, except for McCann. That was her one decent win. And we know, which we'll talk about later because McCann is also on this card, we know that she has some pretty big problems with grappling. So yeah. So that's all just to say, very even fight. The next one though, this is one of my favorite ones on the card. It really is a featherweight banger, an absolute heater of a fight. Blake Builder and Zhang Yang Lee. I mean, amazing fight. I truly cannot wait to watch this. For anybody that did not see Road to UFC, Zhang Yang Lee is an absolute fucking animal. We'll get into him later, but good lord, he is truly already one of my favorite fighters. I mean, oh my god, and possibly my favorite fighter to come out of Road to UFC. I love Road to UFC, favorite show. By the way, season 2 finale on Saturday night after these fights is Road to UFC. We're not going to be talking about this today because I didn't have time to do all those picks as well, but I'm going to be obviously watching that. I love Road to UFC. Hope everybody watches it as well. But yeah, that's all to say. I don't even know what I was going to say there. We'll just move on. Blake Builder. Blake Builder. He was undefeated up until his last fight. Was up on... My throat's fucking with me now. Was undefeated up until his last fight, Kyle Nelson in Vancouver. Yeah. But honestly, I really wasn't hugely impressed before that, which is why I actually picked Kyle Nelson in the last one. So, you know, already that's, I'm not going to say which direction I'm going in, but maybe you can already kind of see where I'm going with this. But has some very good skills, though. I mean, again, he was undefeated for a reason. He does have the wrestling. Has been able to push people into the fence quite a bit. That's usually his style. He pushes people into the fence, grinds them out there, wins the decision, kind of like that. He's a real grinder, as they say. But he is slow. He is very slow. For a featherweight, he's shockingly slow. And this is kind of what turned me off of him when I saw him in his first first couple fights was kind of like, he's kind of slow. He's a little bit sloppy. I don't really know. And that definitely could come in to bite him here. He moves a lot side to side, so he does have the movement, but he's just kind of slow, which led to him getting pieced up quite a bit by Kyle Nelson. So already this was a problem. And Kyle Nelson, not the youngest guy. Not the youngest guy at all. So if it was a problem with Kyle Nelson, it'll probably be a problem here, which is why I had to write that there. And next up, it's similar, but not quite the same. It's his pace. He doesn't really throw out a lot of offense sometimes. Sometimes he does, but most of the time it's a pretty slow-paced fight. Doesn't really throw much. And then he also does back up quite a bit. So when he's pressured, he tends to move back, and then he goes for some counters, but it's a lot of moving back and moving side to side, just on your back foot, not really throwing, which again is a bit of a problem, especially at featherweight, when most guys have a higher pace at featherweight. The odds right now sit at plus 120 for a Blake Builder right now. On the other side of the coin, Zhongyang Li, look at this guy. Look at this absolute fucking tank. I'm not even kidding when I say, when I saw him for the first time, I was like, is this guy a welterweight? Like, not even like, this is featherweight. This is a featherweight fight. Look at this absolute fucking tank. Easily could be a lightweight, but genuinely could even drift into looking like a welterweight. This guy is an absolute beast of a man. Yeah, and again, one road to UFC. He got all three of the fights there. I mean, listen, the finale was a split decision. It was very, very close. That was against Yi Zha, though. And Yi Zha, honestly, should be in the UFC as well. He's also very, very good. And I think, is Yi Zha also fighting this weekend? I can't remember what they did with Yi Zha, but he's very, very good. And Lee managed to beat him as well. And honestly, I think Yi would probably beat Blake Builder as well. So, but anyway, and by the way, the other two wins came in less than a minute. Two of the most brutal knockouts on the show in less than a minute. I mean, seriously, this guy is an absolute tank. Oh, an absolute tank of a man, which brings me to the first point. The striking. The striking is unbelievable. I mean, yes, the power is obviously there. I mean, look at this fucking guy. Obviously, the power is there. But the skill is also there. He doesn't really get hit that much. And my God, is he accurate. He is so good. Seriously, like, this is the real deal in terms of the striking. Like, he is very, very good. Very, very dangerous. So that is very clearly something to watch out for in this matchup. But the wrestling, and I put the question mark there because of the last fight, that split decision. The only reason it was even close was because of the wrestling of Yi Zha. He did have amazing takedown defense, so he didn't really get actually thrown down that much. So it was never really in danger of like, oh my God, he's going to get TKO'd. Oh my God, he's going to get subbed. It was never that. It was never that at all. It was just that he was pushed against the fence quite a bit and controlled quite a bit along the fence, which, as I mentioned, that is what Blake Builder does. So that could be a bit of a problem. But again, that's why I have the question mark up there, because that was really his only downside, was that, because he was very good at the submission skills. In the third round, I wrote that down here as well. He had some great submission skills, but it was just the fact that he was being pushed up against the fence like that and couldn't seem to get off of the fence. But other than that, it was a pretty impressive, pretty flawless run for Zhongyang Li there. Yeah, so that could come into play. I think it will come into play. But again, you know, that was the whole problem. Like the one glaring mistake in his last fight. And he just seems like the kind of guy that would fix that, which is another reason why I put that as a question mark. Is it going to be a problem? Is it not? I'm honestly not really sure. And of course, he's an absolute fucking beast. I mean, again, look at this guy. Look at that mountain of a man, chiseled from stone, statuesque, as they say. I mean, look at this absolute monster. He is massive for 145. And I even wrote this down, and I actually truly do believe this. I think he's honestly the biggest 145er I've ever seen. I can't really think of anybody that's bigger than that. Emmett is probably the closest, and I truly think that he is bigger than Emmett. I really do. Because, I mean, you can even tell he's got that tank, you know, he's got that barrel chest, as they say. But, I mean, he's also pretty big with his legs, too. So it's kind of like, this dude's just a fucking beast. He really is. And that will come in handy, honestly, in every single matchup he ever gets in. So I had to write that down, of course. The power, the size, just all around. But shockingly, because normally this isn't true, and we have seen this with Emmett as well, he has insanely good cardio and good pace. I mean, he really, truly is an absolute fucking machine. I could not be more impressed by somebody making their debut, really. Like this is as impressive gets in terms of making your debut, especially against somebody who, you know, Blake Builder isn't a slouch really either. But my God, Lee is just so impressive. And I cannot wait for this fight. The odds for him, again, he is the favorite. Minus 150, though, very close. And I think it's more so to do with Peterson as well, that it is just, you know, they're both making their debuts. It's somewhat, you know, it's close on paper. So I understand why both of them they have the lower odds. But to me, just like Peterson, I really think he's got, well, now I really did give away my edge there, but I really do think he's got a pretty good chance. And they're fairly generous with the minus 150, I think. So on paper, like I said, it is fairly close, but for me, it's really not that close. Builder has one chance to win this, and that is with his wrestling. If he actually does push Jung Young Lee into the fence for 3 straight rounds, clinch, maybe even control him on the ground, but mostly that clinch stuff again. If he can do that, maybe he'll win the decision. I mean, it's the same strategy, literally the exact same strategy that Yi Jia had, and Yi Jia lost. So, I mean, and Lee already went through it. So it's not going to catch him off guard. He knows what he's going to do, and he already hopefully fixed the holes from the last fight. So, you know, that's his one chance. That's really his one chance to win. Yeah. Other than that, honestly, I think he's just better all the way around. So, I mean, I don't even think I really need to wait. I mean, you got to give the edge to Lee. What else can I say? He's got the obvious edge in pace. That is a huge factor because, like I said, even if somehow Builder for 3 rounds can pin him along the fence, I just don't see how he does enough damage to beat Lee. The pace, the power, the striking ability, and really everything else about Lee, I think it's just going to get him the win. And even though, by the way, even though Builder has never been finished, I truly would not be surprised if this was the first one. If this was the first time that Blake Builder gets finished. I am very high on this guy, Jung Young Lee. There's the little flare. And we move on to the next one. The next one being, of course, Temba Garimbo and is it Pete? Yeah, Pete Rodriguez at welterweight. We'll jump right on in to Temba Garimbo. I mean, there's a pretty obvious edge here, but we'll get into that. Well, At least physically, there's an edge here, but we'll get into that later. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He does have the win over Takashi Sato, and he was submitted by Fletcher, and he's been subbed twice, KO'd twice. So he's definitely been finished before. Very questionable on paper, that is for sure. But he does have one advantage, usually wherever he goes. That's the grappling. He's got non-stop grappling pace. I'm not going to say he's Khabib by any means, but he's definitely moving forward pretty constantly. That has gotten him into a bit of trouble before, though. He has been reversed. He has been controlled. But normally, he's the one controlling. So that is definitely an advantage for him. Disadvantage, though, really has not been the best at striking. He did drop Sato, which is impressive, but overall hasn't really seemed that good. I haven't really been impressed by anything. He also, like I said, has been knocked out twice. So that's a definite flaw. And this was the obvious edge that I was talking about, which is his size. He is very tall. He is very, very tall, very, very long, has a huge reach and height advantage in this matchup and most of the matchups that he is in, which is probably why he's sitting at minus 250 right now. I don't know if he deserves that. We'll see, but that's what he's sitting at right now. On the other side is Pete Rodriguez, and he is 5-1 so far. Oh yeah, that is actually his disadvantage. Is his experience. He's only 5-1. That's it. That is the extent of his MMA career. That's pretty low for the UFC. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what the records are normally like, but 5-1 is a very, very low number. And if we're being real, the matchups that he had, bit, maybe not the most impressive. The loss, I mean, that was an absolute demolishment. Is that a word? I don't know. He got demolished by JDM. That was not even close. And then he did basically the same thing to Mike Jackson, but it's Mike Jackson, which is what I'm saying about the experience. That's kind of that's really his only win. So, the only win is Mike Jackson, then got obliterated by the only person that was actually good that he ever fought. That's questionable, Really don't know how good he is or how bad he is. That worries me quite a bit. And his longest fight, by the way, 3 minutes. 3 minutes long. That is his longest fight. So really not much cage time at all. Have absolutely no idea how he's going to be. That is concerning. Then we got he does have an advantage, though, in that he has very fast hands. Again, oh my god, my eye. Again, that didn't help him at all when he was fighting JDM, so unclear if that'll help him here or not. But that is what helped him against Mike Jackson. Yeah. Did I write anything else here? That I fucked up his thing here for sure. I didn't complete my notes here for him. That's weird. But yeah, did have very fast hands. Another problem, though, grappling. Huge question mark. Truly, like an actual complete mystery. This is, if I was ever going to put a question mark on anything, it would be this, because he has never grappled. He has never grappled on camera before. I have zero idea, literally zero idea how his grappling is. The only really telling sign, I guess, is that he hasn't used it. So if you haven't used it, clearly it's not your main thing. So that's why I put it as a red, because it's probably not his best asset, because we haven't really seen him do that at all yet. And then of course his odds are at plus 190, and that does make sense, because again, we don't really know much about him. The inexperience, the grappling, we don't really know a whole lot. So I totally understand the odds in this case. Who am I giving the edge to, though? That is the real question. Garimbo might be able to grapple him to a decision or sub him, maybe even get a TKO with ground and pound. So Garimbo has a pretty good chance of winning. But on the other side, Garimbo, not really that great at striking. So Pete Rodriguez maybe can get the KO. And maybe he actually does have good defensive grappling. We literally have no idea how his grappling is. So maybe he wins by decision. I don't know. So who gets the edge here? Nobody again, I'm sorry. It is too even. Again, I mean, like, look at how many questions I just raised there. There are way too many questions on both sides. We really don't know how good either guy is. So for me, that means leave it alone, of course, or you could then put money on the underdog. That would be the way to go. But yeah, it's even for me. I really can't tell who's doing what here at all. Next up is Johnson and Maxim at flyweight. I was trying to think. Oh yeah, Charles Johnson and Azat Maxim. Those are their names at flyweight. We'll start, of course, with Charles Johnson here. I mean, good Lord, if I've been burned by anybody in the past, it is Charles Johnson. I've picked him and lost. I've picked against him and lost. He's just a losing fighter for me. But honestly, it's because he's very inconsistent. He's 2-4. He's 2-4 in the UFC. Not a great look. With 2 split decisions, by the way. One of them was a win. One of them was a loss. The one win was over Jalgas. Didn't write the loss. But yeah. And that, honestly, I thought he lost. So really, he probably should be 1-5 right now. And I actually used to think he was good. I really did. And then slowly over time, I don't even know what it is. I can't even really say that he's not good enough. That he's not good. I mean, I guess he's not good enough to be in the UFC because he keeps losing. But it's weird because every time I see him, he looks good. So I don't know what's going on with this guy. He definitely does have one really good asset, though, and that's the boxing. Olympic boxer, very good hands. He's very creative. He moves a lot, body shots, combos, really creative with his movement. Exclusively boxing, though. He really doesn't kick that much, which is why I say boxing and not striking, by the way. I really should have prefaced this whole thing by saying that that's kind of how I do this. Is striking usually means boxing and kicking, and then this would just be the boxing. So yeah, very good hands, very, very good hands. But the one fatal flaw in all of his losses, the grappling. He has not done well with the grappling at all. He has been dominated by every single grappler he has faced. That includes Makayev, Durden, the last guy he fought, I can't remember who it was. Oh, is it Estevam or something like that? Yeah, just dominated by every single grappler he's ever fought. So not good. But very good movement. Very good movement. He does move a lot, and he uses that in his striking quite a bit. So very good striker. Not so good grappler. Then on the other side, oh yeah, of course. Fuck, see? This is why I have it. Plus 175 for good old Charles Johnson, the worst haircut in the UFC. Now on the other side, Azat Maxim, 17-0. Good Lord, 17-0 for Azat Maxim. Debut against Tyson Nam, split decision, very close fight. Obviously, it was a split. But yeah, I thought he won. And I mean, honestly, Tyson Nam, that's a pretty impressive name to beat, especially in your debut. Technically not top 15, but he really is on that edge, and he has been in the top 15 before. He is very good. He's very good. And he's beaten Ode Osborne and somebody else. There were a couple other good wins for Tyson Nam. So winning that in your debut, that is very impressive. I was very impressed by that. As for his advantages here, I mean, he's very well-rounded. He's not just a striker. He's not just a grappler. He is very good all around. very technical, quick striking, not necessarily a KO threat. So he's not going to be probably knocking anybody out anytime soon, especially at flyweight, but very slick. He is very slick in defense and offense. Very good. He has okay grappling. I say that because I haven't really seen him wrestle necessarily that much. But the submissions, I mean, he has an arm triangle win, a rear naked choke win, and a Bravo choke. You know, I mean, arm triangle and Bravo, those are not super common, especially the Bravo. You don't normally hear that. So clearly he's got the submission skills for sure. But the wrestling part of it, good, but nothing insane. You know, not like a Mokaev or a Durden, which is what Johnson had problems with, but still good. Movement is the next thing that he is very good at. He moves very well. He's very quick and evasive, so he's going to be hard to hit, which again could be a factor in this case. That's for sure. His one downside though, didn't have a very high pace against Nam. I don't know if that's a common thing for him or if that was just because he was in his debut or just because he's fighting Tyson Nam. Unclear as to what that means fully. So maybe I should have put the question mark there, but didn't really have a super high pace, which worries me a little bit in this case. It really does, because Charles Johnson does keep a high pace. The odds for him though, definitely a clear favorite, minus 225. Now, who's getting the edge here? Well, as you may have understood from what I just said, it is a lot closer than the odds suggest here. You know, Johnson does have the striking. He's got really good boxing, so he can do it. He's got good takedown defense. Unless you're, like I said, unless you're like Mokaev or somebody like that. Yeah. Maxim, like I said, didn't seem to have amazing wrestling, and that's what Johnson has a problem with. So that could be a problem for him. Maxim also has a lower pace for striking than Johnson, so that could be a problem. But he is very, very good. Ultimately, and I mean, maybe this is a mistake, maybe it's not, maybe this is my Katona all over again from last time. But I did have to go with Maxim. I mean, I just don't know how you can go against somebody that's 17-0. Like, he's undefeated. He beat Tyson Nam, 17-0. You know, and I keep thinking that Johnson should be able to come back and do really well and win. But every time he gets in there and he loses. So I have to pick Maxim. I mean, I just have to do it. That being said, would I put a lot of money on him? No, I would not. And I put him lower in my parlay list there because of that. Because honestly, I do think it's a little bit closer than it would appear. But again, would I pick Charles Johnson to be the guy that breaks Maxim's 17-0 record? No, I wouldn't. So I gotta go with Maxim here. Little flair. You always got to have a bit of flair at the end. Next matchup is Molly McCann, who I talked a little bit about earlier. Diana Belbita, one of my favorites. Oh, I love the Warrior Princess. I love Diana Belbita. So hopefully she never sees this, because I don't think it's going to go well for her. And this is a strawweight, which actually is, by the way, an important wrinkle. This is at strawweight. It's strawweight. This is very important. So we'll open up with Molly McCann. Has only fought at 125 in the UFC. That is why this is very important that this is at strawweight. She has never fought at strawweight before. Very, very important to note that. Now moving down to 115. Obviously, she's got her striking. That's really pretty clearly what she's good at. Striker versus grappler. I mean, it's not a striker versus grappler, not in this case, but that's usually how her matchups go. She can really only strike. Doesn't normally grapple at all. multiple spinning elbow finishes, very fast strikes with some pretty decent power. I mean, again, she has a few knockouts. She's got 2 by spinning elbow. Amazing. I mean, just the striking, fantastic. Because you don't normally see women that get a lot of knockouts. This is one of them. So that's pretty impressive. Very, very important to note that. The one obvious problem, and I've said it I think 4 or 5 times this stream alone, is the grappling. She does not grapple. She is not very good at the grappling. Dominated by every single grappler she's ever faced. Blanchfield, Stoliarenko, Santos. Just never has competed even in the grappling exchanges. Yeah, so not good. But really an actual point now that that maybe we didn't think about before is maybe because she's undersized. It might not be a skill thing. It could have been a size thing. We don't know that. So that is actually important to point out, which is why, again, that is very important to mention the weight class in this, because Santos, a huge flyweight, Blanchfield, honestly, a pretty decent sized flyweight herself, and Stoliarenko, we even said, has struggled to make 135 in the past, so she's very big as well. So could the size have been a problem in all 3 of those fights and maybe it's not just the grappling, maybe it's the size as well? We'll see, because that actually could be a case. I don't want to shit on Molly too much. It really could be because of the size. Obviously has the pace and the cardio, and that is very important in a lot of her matchups and will be probably very important here as well. Keeps an insanely high striking pace and never slows down. She will never slow down from first round to third round. She's always going to be that high pace, always going to be ahead on the pace and with the cardio. And because of that, she is sitting at a minus 250 at minus 250 as the favorite, so that does kind of make sense, because on the other side is Diana Belbita. Love you so much, Diana Belbita. And her obvious threat would be the boxing. And again, I point this out as boxing, not striking necessarily, because she doesn't necessarily throw as many kicks, but she's pretty good at the boxing. She's got the jab and the power, not many kicks. That was my notes there. The grappling, also not necessarily that great. She has done a little bit of wrestling against Carolina in her last fight, but was controlled for a while there, and has been submitted 3 times. Will that come into play this time? Probably not. Probably not. But if Molly is that much bigger, maybe she can use her size in the grappling. So it could come in to bite her here. But the submission part of it, I really don't think so. But there is one thing that really does jump off the page. She really is super tough. Very, very tough. Never been knocked out. Gets hit a decent amount, but she never really seems to get affected by it, which is extremely impressive. Very, very impressive. Which, again, could actually come into play here because, like I said, because of that pace, because of the striking of Molly McCann. But yeah. I don't even know what I was going to say there. The odds, plus 200. You can kind of see where this is going already. Who's getting the edge here? Well, it's actually a pretty interesting question, because a lot of you might not know this, because I actually had no idea until I looked this up, until I did my research, of course. They actually already fought. These two have already fought in 2019. I had no idea. Because I wasn't watching the UFC back then, so I didn't know that. But they have already fought at 125. Because remember what I said, McCann has never fought at 115 before, but Belbita has fought at 125 before. I think I just said the wrong numbers. McCann has never fought at 115. Belbita has never fought, has fought at 125. Good Lord, now I'm getting myself mixed up. But yeah, they fought each other, and Molly won that time by decision then as well. I kind of think that's going to be happening here as well. Both of them beat Hannah Goldie, by the way. Another interesting wrinkle. But Molly got a finish. Belbita won by decision. As for the rest, like I said, Molly has been doing well at 125 with her striking. I mean, she has knockouts at 125. That's pretty impressive. So, and she's obviously held her own at 125 as well, with everybody else's power as well. So I really don't think Belbita, you know, like, I don't think the power of Belbita and the striking of Belbita is going to be, I'm not going to say it's a concern, you know, it's not a concern, but it's not going to be like, oh shit, she really, really has to, like, oh man, she's going to get knocked out possibly. Like, I don't think so. The pace, maybe, but no, not that. But anyway, but awful with the grappling at 125, probably due to the size, and I really did want to make that clear, that maybe she was having problem with the grappling at 125 because of the size of her opponents. That really could be. And Belbita has really only been at 115, except for, of course, against Molly McCann. And she belongs at 115, to be fair. Like, she really does, Belbita. And maybe could even be 105 if that was a weight class in the UFC. Because she's not really... I mean, I don't even know what else to say. She looks good. She looks great all the time. Anyway, but who's getting the edge? I mean, how do you go against McCann when she literally already beat her one time? You know, she stacks up really well in the matchup again, and she won the first time. I think, honestly, it's going to be exactly the same. I think it's going to be somewhat close on the feet, with McCann probably taking the edge there, and then maybe probably a little bit of grappling thrown in there from McCann as well, which I don't think is going to be all that great for Belbita because of the size of McCann now. She's actually gotten... I don't even know... Again, I don't know where I was going with that, but... Man, I really need to pay more attention to these notes. Anyway, the point is, I'm going with McCann. Again, she already beat Belbita one time. Looks good in the matchup again. Gotta go with McCann. Next up is Urbina and Radke at welterweight. Pretty close one, honestly. First, we'll talk about Urbina, of course. Tough finalist in 2021. That was the one with Volk and Ortega. Finalist against Brian Battle. Did get submitted there. And then came back to the UFC and won his debut against Orion Cosey. He does have some pretty clear advantages in general. Striking. Oh, by the way, that was at middleweight. This is now down at 170. Pretty important. The striking. Definitely has the striking. He's got some good hands. Real good power in there. So the striking definitely his advantage. As for the cardio, though, not really sure. Hasn't ever really gone past the second round. So if he doesn't get a knockout, I don't really know how this is going to go. And he did seem to slow down in the last two fights as well, but did win the last one, like I said, against Cosey. So not really sure how that cardio is going to work out, but I don't know if it's a real problem or not. That's why I put the question mark there, because we haven't really seen him actually go deeper in a fight yet. The obvious advantage, especially in this one, though, is his size. As I mentioned, was at middleweight, now down at welterweight. Also, fun fact, Radke fought at 155, now moving up to 170. So that's a pretty clear size advantage right there. Also has the height as well. Not even just the weight, also has the height as well. And he's currently sitting at minus 200. On the other side, Radke lost to two guys with a 1-0 record. That doesn't look good as it is. Beat Blood Diamond in his debut. Blood Diamond is 3-2. Is that really all that impressive either? Not really sure. And he beat him with wrestling, which is, let's just say Blood Diamond that's not his strong suit. That is not his strong suit at all. But I gotta give it to him. He does seem pretty well-rounded. I haven't seen like gaping flaws in anything. I haven't been super impressed by anything either, but I haven't seen anything horrifyingly bad yet. Like I said, he did dominate Blood Diamond with the grappling. He did have Piersma, because I watched a different fight outside the UFC. He did have Piersma on his back quite a bit, so that speaks to the grappling. Oh, actually, no. That speaks negatively towards the grappling, I should say, as Piersma was on his back. And wobbled Diamond pretty bad, so he does have some power and some striking in there. So again, seems pretty well-rounded, but we haven't really seen him go against anybody good yet. And like I said, he did lose to 2 people with a 1-0 record, which could be maybe not a big deal, might be a big deal, because I don't really know who either one of those guys was, so yikes. And that really speaks to the experience part of it as well. That is definitely not a good-looking record. Doesn't have very many fights. Not great results. Not very impressive debut. Blood Diamond, like I said. Or, was that Blood Diamond? Yeah, Blood Diamond. Was it Blood Diamond? Yeah, Blood Diamond. Fuck. Used to be 155. Oh, yeah. The size. That's a problem, specifically in this one, as I mentioned. Used to be 155. He isn't that small. Like, he doesn't look like a 155er per se. But when you compare him to Urbina, then it starts to show itself quite a bit, because Urbina is much taller and probably also thicker as well. So that could be a real problem. And his odds plus 162. So who am I giving the edge here? Wait for the animations, of course. Because of their inexperience, it honestly is a bit tough to tell, because Urbina really only the one fight after Tough. And, you know, these Tough people, kind of tough to tell, pardon the pun, but it is kind of tough to tell sometimes how good these guys actually are. And then, of course, on the other side, Radke, really don't know how good he is at all either. So it is pretty close on paper. And Urbina hasn't shown much of the grappling, or really much of a high pace. So could be a problem there as well. Radke has been hit and is smaller, so that could be a problem for Radke. Ultimately, I did go with Urbina. I did end up going with Urbina on this. It's just the size. It really comes down to the size. He's so much bigger than Radke. He's taller, so then the grappling ends up being a little bit harder, because it's hard to take somebody down that's taller than you. And then, of course, the reach with the striking. Urbina has the power. Radke was hit before in his other fights. You know, he just seems to be a bit better all around, too. So I gotta give the edge to my man, Urbina. Had to copy the pose there. Again, I did pick some good pictures other than the stock ones. So going with Urbina on this one. Next up, it's a middleweight fight. It's Khizriev making his debut against Mahmoud. There's a lot of in this fight. Mahmoud Muradov and Khizriev in middleweight. And we're going to talk about Khizriev first, of course. 14-0. 14-0 Khizriev. By the way, very funny. He was hilarious on the Contender Series. Very entertaining guy. Usually these Russians, not that entertaining. Hilarious picture, though. I mean, look at this guy. It looks like he's surprised. Like he's surprised to get his picture taken. 14-0. 7 first-round finishes. Finished Tululin in his debut, but did get hit a few times. Is that a big deal? Is it not? Maybe not. Seemed somewhat wobbled. You know, could be a problem, might not be, but still 14-0, 7 first-round finishes. The wrestling obviously jumps off the page, and that's what we'll talk about first. Incredible wrestling. I mean, he's just that classic Dagestani guy. Great control, great damage from, you know, TKO, ground and pound, that kind of stuff. Very, very, very good at that. So that is something to watch out for, of course. He also has some pretty good movement, though. He really does. Decent striking. Oh, I thought I almost had the wrong notes for a second. Yeah, he does have good movement. Decent striking and decent power. But the movement makes him much better, especially at middleweight. They don't normally move a lot, and he moves a lot side to side. Fairly, I don't know if I would say he's quick, but he does move a lot, which is good because Mahmoud, of course, uses a lot of striking. So he's going to be a little bit harder to hit for him. And then, of course, he's Dagestani. I mean, he's undefeated. He's just a classic Dagestani guy. He's got the grappling. He's got the record. He clearly has the look. He's got the style. Everything about him, very much Dagestani. And we know how consistent and how good those guys are. So I had to put that down there as just a factor in itself. And I'm a little surprised, actually, that the odds are this low. I guess it's because it's his debut, and Muradov has had some pretty decent fights in the past. But he's sitting at minus 175. So, I don't know. You might get some value there, really. Then on the other side, of course, Mahmoud Muradov. 4-2 in the UFC. Early success. Oh, Sean. Sean. Thanks for the fire emojis there. Oh, man, I didn't put up the... Oh, that was one thing I forgot. I meant to put up so that all the YouTube comments show up on the stream as well. When I used to do the video game streams, I had that. Thank you, Sean, for the fire emojis. But yeah, 4-2 in the UFC. I was pretty convinced that he was really good early on, but he was kind of fighting against some nobodies at the time. Made him look maybe a little bit better than he actually is. So the hype of Muradov has kind of fallen down a little bit over time and might just completely collapse here with this one. But he does have the striking. Don't forget that. He definitely has the striking here. He's very fast with the strikes. Decent power. Lots of movement. Lots of movement. Of course, they both have a lot of movement, so I guess that neutralizes itself here. Doesn't have the grappling, though. That's where this all falls apart for him. Really does not have good grappling. Lost to GM3, Mearshart was submitted by him. And then Bohalio just completely exposed that wide open. Did not do well with the grappling of Bohalio. And I mean, Bohalio has some good grappling, but Khizriev equal or probably better if we're being real. So definitely a problem in this matchup for sure. Oh, I forgot to change the color of that. Obviously, being hesitant, not so good. He doesn't really have a high pace, and it seems like even when he's about to maybe get some good shots in, it seems like he doesn't want to jump in there and get some shots in. And that really showed itself in the last fight, which was against Brian Barberena. Rocked Brian Barberena multiple times, almost had the finish, but didn't go in there. He didn't jump in there, never jumped in there once to get a ground and pound TKO or even just along the fence, anything. Never went in there. That is not a good sign, especially when your opponent is super aggressive. So again, well, I fucked up the colors on this. It's supposed to be red, but yeah, not good in this kind of matchup. And he's sitting at plus 140 because of those things. So who am I giving the edge? I mean, is there even a question at this point? I mean, it is Khizriev's biggest test by far, especially with the striking of Muradov. Again, he is making his debut. But in terms of the way the matchup works out and the skills of both of them, I think it's pretty clear you gotta go with Khizriev on this one. I mean, the wrestling, unstoppable. I really don't think that Muradov is going to be able to stop that. Could he get a freak KO in there? Sure, maybe. I mean, again, Khizriev is 14-0. I don't think he's going to get knocked out like that. But you never know. I mean, it happened to Islam. Islam Makhachev was knocked out for a similar reason, so it can happen to anybody. But if I had to make a bet, which I do because that's what I do, I would have to go with Khizriev on this one. And again, Bohalio easily beat him with the grappling, and he was also subbed by GM3. So Khizriev is probably going to do the same thing, probably going to get a finish, probably going to get a sub. And there's the flare. Next up, it's back to the ladies. It is Viviane Araújo and Natalia Silva. Oh, I love myself some Natalia Silva. My goodness. One of my favorite up-and-coming female fighters. Great person. At flyweight, of course. First up, we've got the more experienced, of course, Araújo. 4 UFC losses. Not necessarily that bad of a thing. And they're all the top 15 people. So it's really not a knock against her at all. It just speaks to her experience, how good she actually is. Those losses, Amanda Ribas, Alexa Grasso, the champ, and Chookagian, consensus, number 1, number 2 contender forever, really, and Jessica Ai. So all people in the top 15, all pretty experienced people. She is definitely the real deal. This is a very big test for Natalia Silva. And she's very well-rounded. She is very well-rounded, which of course is why she's lasted in the top 15 this long. Great offensive striking, but she is there to be hit. So maybe the defense, I'm not saying it lacks a little bit, but she does get hit here and there. And a great ground game with great grappling and submissions. That I would say is more of her strong suit, but the striking's still very good as well. The one huge knock on her, especially in this matchup, though, gotta be the age. Gotta be the age on this one. Especially, with this kind of matchup where Silva is so fast, she's gonna lose a bit of her speed now because she's older. It's probably gonna be a real problem. And then the output usually goes down as well. The strength usually goes down. And again, remember, she's facing somebody I believe is 10 years younger than her. That's not usually good. I mean, the UFC loves to throw up their stats. I think it's like 65% of the time or something like that. The younger fighter wins when it's like that. So already the stats, not really on her side for that one. She does have the durability, though. She really does. I really doubt she would get finished. She's never been finished in the UFC. And she could steal the later parts of the fight because of that. Yeah, so that is something to watch out for. Definitely makes this much more interesting. The odds, plus 260. I think Silva might actually be the biggest favorite on this card. I gotta say, I wouldn't put her as the biggest favorite on this card. I think it's a lot closer than that. But we'll get into that right now with Silva. There it is. Last loss was an undefeated Marina Rodriguez. That was her last loss ever. And it wasn't even in the UFC. This was in a regional scene in Brazil. She was 20 years old, lost to Marina Rodriguez, who is still in the top 5 in the UFC. So, I mean, if that's your last loss, that's A-okay with me. I'm not going to knock you on that. So that's already pretty good. Very clearly well-rounded so far. Incredible control of distance with fast kicks and movement. Oops. That's my next one. Oh, I messed up my notes again. My goodness. This is how you can tell this is the first time I'm doing this. She did have okay against grappling against Bleja, but was controlled a couple of times. Bleja is very, very good at grappling, though. We haven't seen her back yet. I wonder what happened to her. And then great against Jasmine Jasudavicius. And I said earlier in the stream how good Jasmine has become. I think she's the best Canadian prospect, male or female. I really do. And Jasmine uses that grappling and that clinch. Natalia won that fight, so she can clearly stand up to the grappling and the clinch work. That's pretty impressive. And then, I mean, the striking is unreal. It really is. She is so fast. And the kicks, the punches, the knockouts. I mean, she had a crazy kick finish. And I think it was the Contender Series. I can't remember where it was. But my God, she is very good at striking. So yeah, very well-rounded for sure. But definitely prefers the striking more for the offense part of it. Next one is the distance. That's what I was going to mention earlier. Incredible control of distance. So really does not get hit very often because not only is she super fast, but she moves a lot side to side, back and forth very quickly, and then also uses kicks really quickly to then keep her opponents back. Very, very good at that distance control. And then, of course, I mentioned it before as a knock for Araujo, the age. I mean, like I said, I believe she's 10 years younger. Way faster. Way faster. She might actually be the fastest person in the division. I'd like to actually kind of maybe do some research into that just to see if she actually is the fastest, but she looks like she's probably one of the fastest ones. I am losing my voice right now. Good Lord. But that is Natalia Silva right there. Huge advantages right there for sure. And that's why she's at minus 350. Like I said, though, I really do think it's a little bit closer than those odds. I really don't think she's a minus 350 favorite there. I wouldn't be putting her in all of your parlays. I wouldn't be putting a bunch of money on her. But I would say she does have an edge on paper for sure. They're both well-rounded. Both of them, by the way, fought Andrea Lee, so that's a good comparison point. Silva dominated the whole fight on the feet, which is pretty impressive. Araujo got dropped pretty bad, by the way, by Andrea Lee in the first round. So already right there, you can kind of see that difference in the striking, where Silva, comparatively to Lee at least, to Andrea Lee, did much better with the striking. But Araujo used her grappling there. She was much better at the grappling. So somewhat close. But I still got to go with Silva. I mean, the age especially, I don't know how you could go against somebody who's 10 years younger like that. I mean, I could see Silva getting pinned on the canvas and losing like that in a decision. That's about the only problem I really see. The age, the speed, the movement of Silva is probably what's going to get it done. Silva seems to be getting better every fight as well, because again, she's pretty young. She's continuously improving more and more and more. I really do think that she could be a champion at some point. I don't say this very often, I really don't, but she strikes me as somebody that could be a champ at some point. So I really got to go with her. That being said, I don't think she's going to get a finish. Araujo, again, never finished in the UFC. So I'm thinking this is going to go a little bit longer to a decision, but either way, got to go with Silva on this one. Next up, it is back to the men. Randy Brown, Rude Boy Randy Brown, and Muslim Salikov on the other side at welterweight. First up, of course, is Randy Brown. I do have to pause here. Sorry, this is going to be weird. Just for like 10 seconds, because I need to order my dinner. Oh, no way. They don't have my fucking order. Good Lord. This is just going to take a few seconds. It's from KFC. I got to put this in or else my food is never going to come. Entertain yourselves in the meantime. Zinger sandwich, big box. I'm going KFC. I love a good Zinger box sandwich. And for anybody that's watching, do you have a favorite KFC order? I always go the spicy chicken sandwiches. I'm more of a chicken sandwich guy than a chicken piece kind of guy. Oh my goodness. Gotta choose a side. What do you go for the sides? I don't like coleslaw, not a macaroni salad. Oh man, I guess I gotta go corn. Sad. Choose fries. Individual, that's free. Yup. Choose a drink. Oh man. So many choices. Gotta go with the lemon iced tea. Add to cart. What do I got in my cart here? Popcorn chicken poutine. Got the... Oh, I don't want gravy. Zinger, singer, yep. Okay. And check out. My apologies. I just need to order this because I'm starving and it's going to be done soon. Gotta add the tip. I'm not a complete asshole. I gotta add a tip in there. $40. Can you believe this? Can you believe this highway robbery? $40 for a delivery. Unreal for one person. Good Lord. Got the right address in here. Beep, 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 beep. I'm not going to say the actual address, obviously. And place the order. We're good. Confirming the order. Cool. We're back. We're back. Had to walk you through my KFC order, of course. Randy Brown, rude boy Randy Brown, 11-5 in the UFC. Been here for a while. Very experienced. I kind of wrote this. Is he a gatekeeper? Is he not? I mean, he's not really in the top 15, but he kind of keeps people from going up to the top 20. He's kind of in that in between. He beats everybody outside the top 20, but then he loses pretty much every single time to somebody outside of that range. So, you know, I don't know. Take with that what you will. I don't really know what to say else about that. Obvious advantage is his striking. Great distance striking with kicks and jabs. Uses that length well because he's very clearly very tall. And he's always the tallest guy. Always has the reach advantage. And that is definitely the case here. We'll talk about his reach in a bit. But yeah, huge reach advantage here. And uses it very well in every single fight. The one problem, though, always a very low pace. Very, very low pace. Not really aggressive. Doesn't have the highest pace. I'm reading my notes here, so I repeated myself. Really noticeable in the last fight with Turman. Honestly, kind of thought that he should have won that a lot easier. I mean, Turman, I don't think is terrible, but he didn't have a high pace either. Not a great fight to watch, if I'm being real. Both of them had a lower pace, and Brown has done that in most of his fights. He struggles with the pace, which is a problem in this matchup specifically with Salikov. But of course, his biggest advantage, biggest asset is that size, as I mentioned. Uses the wild height and range very, very well. Very difficult to take down because of the height and the size, and very difficult to get close, of course, not just because of the kicks, but also because of the jab. Just a very long, awkward guy to fight, which is probably why he's at minus 250 right now. Again, kind of similar to the last one. I don't really know if I agree with the minus 250 part of it. I think it's a little closer than that, but I digress. Moving on. Muslim Salikov, he has been submitted twice, KO'd once, 6-2 in the UFC, so not a bad record. Just slightly inconsistent. Sometimes I kind of can't tell how he's going to actually perform. But you always know the striking is going to be wild. I mean, he has got some of the most creative strikes I've ever seen. The spinning kicks, they're so fast. I mean, he's probably got the best spinning kicks I've ever seen. They're so fast. They come out of nowhere. Very exciting to watch. And does actually land quite a few of them. He is very good. Very precise, very creative, and does have some good power. That's actually how he's been winning most of his fights. He usually loses in terms of like a decision point of view, so he's usually losing on the cards, but then he'll get a knockout out of nowhere because he's just so consistent and the striking is so good. And it's also because of the speed. He is usually, or pretty much always actually, the faster guy, which contributes to the power because I've heard this a lot on the broadcast. They always say, might not actually be because the guy is stronger than the other guy. The power actually comes from the speed. And it's definitely the case with Muslim Salikov. He definitely has the speed. And he moves a lot too, but doesn't necessarily move that fast. It's just his strikes are so fast. That's the problem. But huge downside, especially in this one, is his age. He's actually almost 40. He's 39. So he's 6 years older. And the problem with his style, the speed, is that the speed is one of the first things that goes along with the defensive reflexes, which is kind of what he uses. That is his whole thing. So that's a problem. And then also the strength in the clinch also goes down, which again, when you're going against somebody that big and tall, that could definitely be a problem as well. Which is why, probably why anyway, he's sitting at plus 200. So who's getting the edge in this one? The odds say it's really not that close. I say otherwise. I think it's a lot closer than the odds suggest. I think it's pretty close on paper and on film, because really on paper, I mean, they're pretty close. I mean, I just went through their records. They're similar records in terms of win-loss. And the film, honestly, is pretty close on both of them as well. Brown is long. He could get a KO. Could even pin him to the fence for a decision. I could really see that happening. Salikov can pretty much do the same thing to him. Honestly, he could get a KO as well. But instead of getting the clinch along the fence, maybe he uses his Dagestani background out of nowhere to get some takedowns. Doesn't normally use the takedowns, but I have seen him use it in the past, and it works pretty well. But again, the height could be a problem. We don't really know. So who's getting the edge in this case? Nobody, honestly. I have it even in this one. I didn't give out an edge here. I do that for some of them because there's just too many questions. Both guys are fairly inconsistent as well. I've seen Muslim have some pretty bad performances. I've definitely seen Randy Brown have some bad performances. And like I said, they're both pretty close on paper and in the film. So I can't really give out an edge here. So that would mean that if you're making the bets, you might as well put some money on the underdog, Muslim Salikov, in this case. Because it's just even. So why not put some money on the massive underdog? Next up is Money Moicano and Drew Dober. Look at Dober. My God. My God. Just a little sneak preview for the end of the year. I'm going to be giving out blue bonuses for not just fight-related things. I'm also giving out some other blue bonuses, including Sexiest Fighter of the Year, male and female. And I'm not going to lie, I might have Dober at number 1 right now. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy over there, Drew Dober. But we're going to start off with Money Moicano. The submissions are... Oh, yeah. There we go. The submissions, pretty slick, very dangerous. The wrestling, though, interestingly enough, hasn't really been that great. I mean, he does have a few takedowns in there, but he does give up takedowns a lot more. He actually tends to get his submissions from the bottom by being taken down. So, you know, I struggle to actually even put up grappling up there. I should have maybe even put up BJJ instead, because the submissions, very good. The wrestling, I would say just average. The low point, though, definitely the striking. For sure, the striking. Hasn't been obvious in the most recent fights necessarily, but he has been KO'd 3 times in the UFC. He is getting better. I really do think he's improving, but he does still get hit quite a bit. It just hasn't been a problem in the last couple fights. But believe me, if you're fighting Drew Dober, could be a problem. Could be a problem if you get hit. That is for damn sure. And that's what I was just saying too, the progress. He has been one of those guys recently that's been improving quite a bit. He seems to be getting better and better. He also hasn't been that active, which seems to be that he's been getting better. But with the inactivity, I can't really tell how much better he actually is getting. In this case, might actually be a good thing. I'm not really sure. We'll find out. That's the problem with being inactive, is your inactivity a problem or a good thing? Not really sure, because we can't really tell how good he's getting. So it's going to be a secret to Drew Dober too. We don't know how good he's going to be. And the odds, minus 200. I think his talking has now put him over the edge. I think people are maybe looking at that, and then also maybe looking at Dober's mistake against Frivola there. You know, so Moicano kind of skyrocketing upwards. Dober, people are kind of thinking he's plateauing. I think that's playing into the odds here, because I do think it's a lot closer than that. But we'll see. But yeah, Dober on the other hand here, I mean, there's a pretty obvious advantage here. That would be the striking. Clearly, because when he hits guys, they get stumbled every single time or they get knocked out completely. I mean, this guy is power personified. That is for sure. When he is patient, and that's important, when he's patient, he's very, very dangerous on the feet. And I mean, he can be dangerous either way, but especially when he's super patient, that is when he is very, very dangerous. And I think he's starting to figure out that if I'm patient, I can get the finish, I can get the win, and I don't have to make any stupid mistakes. And that is why I wrote this down, because in the past, he has made those mistakes. Against Frivola, that was the biggest mistake. That actually lost me one of the sniper picks because I had him. The fight IQ. He gets excited sometimes, runs into danger, thinking, oh, my chin can take it, or, you know, I'm just going to knock him out and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets taken down or something like that. There is a definite fight IQ issue in the past. Will that come up again? We never know, because he has been improving quite a bit as well. But in the past, that was definitely a problem. Obvious edge. I mean, again, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Absolute fucking beast. He is massive, massive for a lightweight. And that translates very, very well to the power. Huge, huge power. And that makes him difficult to control as well with the grappling, which definitely could be a problem for Moicano there with the grappling. Because again, haven't been super impressed by the grappling of Moicano. So the size of him in this one could be a problem, because Dober does have some defensive grappling as well. Not necessarily offensive grappling, but defense holds up usually. And he's sitting at plus 162. What the fuck? Now somebody's calling my phone. What is going on today? So who's getting the edge in this one? Wait for the animations, of course. They've both had issues with both of these matchups before. I mean, like I said, Dober has been controlled by grapplers in the past. Actually, I don't think I did say that, but he has. Islam, mainly. And with fight IQ in general. And Moicano has been knocked out before. A couple of times. 3 times, actually. So that's a problem as well. There's problems on both sides, which is why, sadly, I can't really give an edge for this one either. My apologies for this one. But that does mean I am destroying my throat today. My goodness. It's because I took a few weeks off. My throat's not used to talking this much. I'm slightly leaning Dober just a little bit because of the power, but I just don't know how good Moicano is. Like I said, he's been improving so much. I actually don't really know how good he is. I really don't. And I don't really know how good Dober is either. So because of what he's been doing too, he's been kind of mentally all over the place. His skill has always been there, but like I said, the fight IQ, that part of it is all over the place to the point where I can't tell how good he's going to be either. So way too many questions. So I'm going even, which means the money goes to, ironically, against money Moicano, to Dober. You got to go with Dober, just in terms of the betting, just because it's that close. Next up, my goodness, I'm getting so hungry. Oh, I smell food now. Oh my goodness, I'm getting so hungry. I hope this is done soon. And we're getting into the main card anyway, so we're getting close. Oh, actually, this is the last fight. What am I talking about? This is it. It's Dolidze. It's Imavov. It's the main event. It's middleweight. Let's go. First up, Dolidze, of course. Do I have anything here? Yes. Has 7 KOs. 7 KOs. 4 in the UFC. Insane stat here. He had 3 KOs in 2022. 3 KOs in 1 year. How crazy is that? His only losses in his entire career, Trevin Giles and Marvin Vettori. And that Marvin Vettori one was, yeah, that was his last fight. And that makes sense. You know, Vettori, a pretty clear top 5, maybe even top 3 contender. Don't hold that against him. And by the way, it was actually a fairly close fight too. Even actually stumbled Vettori a couple of times. Obviously didn't knock him down because Vettori has the chin of a statue of Michelangelo, of course, but has been stumbled there for sure. Which would obviously mean his edge would be the striking. Huge power, really awkward. Actually, this is more of a DDP style. I mean, Luana Carolina, I mentioned earlier, unusual striking as well. This kind of reminds me a little bit more of DDP, where it's like you don't really know what he's going to throw. He kind of just throws it. He just throws it, and he's got a shit ton of power, so he knocks people out. That's kind of what he does, which makes him very, very dangerous. The problem with that, though, is he really does not keep a high pace. He just, like I said, he kind of just blitzes in there and hopes to do some real damage. Not really a consistent pace to win a decision, that's for sure. He's really banking on that knockout. That's kind of his only real way to win. Yeah. But the unorthodox part of it definitely helps him quite a bit in general, and probably in this one quite a bit too, because Imavov actually really struggles with people that are unusual. That's why he struggled so much with Strickland, is because Strickland himself is also pretty unusual. So he struggles with that. He struggles with people that aren't fighting like they're supposed to. You know what I mean? What else here? Where did I lost myself in my notes here? Oh, that was it. The odds plus 140. Now, moving on to Imavov, of course. Never been KO'd, and that is very important in this matchup specifically. He's never been KO'd. So, can he get the KO here? Not sure. He's never been KO'd before. I don't know. But, shockingly, he lost to Phil Haas. I don't know if you've been paying attention to Phil Haas lately, but has not been doing the best. And yes, Imavov does have a loss to Phil Haas. So that is concerning to say the least. But he's pretty well-rounded. At least he's proven that way so far. Uses his range really well with kicks and such. You know, the jabs and everything. Really keeps that range well, which really he needs. He very much needs that in this matchup, because if you get close to Dolidze, you're probably going to get knocked out. So really needs that range here. Very technical striking, so the exact opposite of Dolidze, really. He's just exactly what you would imagine. Like, that is what you're supposed to be doing when you're striking. Exactly what he's doing. Very quick strikes as well, but not really a whole lot of power. So he's got the technique, he's got the speed, but he doesn't really have a lot of power behind it. And we've kind of seen that in each of his matchups. It's why he doesn't knock anybody out at all. Like, he doesn't even really stumble people or knock them down. He kind of just lands, moves out, lands, moves out. That's about it. And then he also does have some decent grappling in there. He is Dagestani after all. I mean, he's got to have a little bit of grappling in there, of course. But yeah, the distance, that's a huge part of it. Really controls it well, moves quickly, uses kicks. Very important in this matchup specifically. But the pressure, he does not deal well with forward pressure. Again, that's another reason why he had a huge problem with Strickland, because Strickland always moves forward. He doesn't deal well with that. And that actually did happen against Chris Curtis as well. Struggled a little bit with the forward pressure of Chris Curtis. I mean, well, actually, I was going to say he did end up winning. Kind of didn't. It was a no contest. But it looked like he was going to be winning. But still, whenever Chris Curtis started walking forward and Mavov started walking back and wasn't throwing anymore, who is always walking forward in this situation? Dolidze. So it's a definite problem in this matchup for sure. And he's at minus 200 right now as the favorite. So who am I giving the edge in this matchup? It's really close again. Dolidze's power and style could easily get him a finish. He really could get a KO. I would not be surprised. Even though, like I said, Mavov never been finished. But he's also never gone against anybody like this. So, you know. And Strickland, by the way, did also stumble him quite a few times. And we know, and as Sean even said himself, he doesn't really have power. Strickland, not a knockout guy. And even he managed to knock down, I think he got a knockdown. Maybe he just stumbled him back into the fence. But even he managed to do that against a Mavov. Imagine what somebody like Dolidze is capable of doing to somebody like a Mavov if he lands even a couple of solid punches. I mean, really could be the end of the night for sure. But on the other hand, a Mavov has a lot more skill all around. I mean, there is no doubt about that. Mavov, for sure, hands down, is the more skilled person. There is no question about that. But he does not have much power. So that's a problem because Dolidze just walks into people. And he was walking straight into Vettori. So if he's doing that with Vettori, I would imagine he's going to do it with Mavov too. Because Mavov, much less dangerous than Vettori. And he did wobble Vettori like that. But that being said, yes, Mavov does have the more skilled background, especially with the grappling. So, I mean, you know, if Dolidze really doesn't get that KO, he's in for a very long, uncomfortable night of grappling, probably. So that could very easily happen as well. A lot of grappling from Mavov, nullifying that power, that unorthodox style, and he could get the win like that. So it is definitely very close, which is why it's even. I'm sorry, I couldn't pick one for this one either. There are too many questions, again, for both sides. I don't really know if Mavov is that good, and I never was really super convinced that Dolidze was that good either, but I am slightly more convinced now that after that Vettori fight. But still, it's too close to call. There's too many questions on both sides, so I gotta go even, which of course means the smart money bet would be on Dolidze, the underdog. I had to think of who the underdog was there for a second. And that's it for the matchups. But now we will get into the best bets of the night, of the week, I should say. We recapped the bets just overall earlier, and kind of explained them there. But of course, I'll go through them right now as well. The first one being the triple play. The triple play, of course, is where I pick 3 of the people that got the edge, and I put them in a parlay. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just as simple as that. I just gave it a nice name. The triple play. First up it's Jungyong Lee. He's at minus 150. Honestly, I just think he's so much better than Blake Builder. Just an absolute tank of a man. I mean, look at this guy. Maybe on my list for sexiest of the year. I don't know. Maybe he's on the top 5. I don't know. But look at that. I mean, he's a tank, and he is very, very good. Like I said, probably the best person who's come off of Road to UFC. He is very, very good. My throat is annihilated right now. Next up, I've got McCann. Like I said, she beat Belbita before. She should win again. She's got the size. She's got the striking, the pace, everything. She should win again. She really should. And she's at minus 250 right now. And then finally, I've got Silva in there. She's at minus 350. I mean, I'm pretty confident about the other two, and Silva should win this, especially because of her age, especially because she keeps getting better and better, the speed, the striking. So you combine those three, I feel decent. I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, there's the picture there. I forgot that I did that. And then the odds are at plus 200. That is what that is set at. So plus 200 for those three. I mean, who's complaining about that? Those are pretty good odds for that. And that's the triple play. Moving on, it is the Grand Slam. The Grand Slam is pretty much the same thing, but it's 4 people instead of 3. And of course, you swap out a couple of the people just to not get super overexposed on any one specific person. First up, that is Thomas Peterson. I think, yeah, Thomas Peterson? Yeah. Thomas Peterson, minus 175. He is making his debut, but I don't really think Pogues is that good. And I have been extremely impressed with what I saw from Peterson. So I'm going Peterson on the first leg there. Next up, because of the way I set this up, there's always going to be one person that is in both parlays. Today, that is Jung Young Lee, because I just think he is that good. So minus 150, I put him back in there as well. Next up, Khizriev at minus 175. I mean, he definitely has the advantage in this fight. He's undefeated as well. Got the wrestling in there. He really, really should win this. So I've got him in there as well. And finally, it's Azat Maxim. I will say this was the one that barely made it, because there's always one or two on the list because I pick a top 6. Kind of just squeaked into that 6th position. Pretty close. But again, another undefeated guy, 17-0. Charles Johnson hasn't really been all that impressive. So, seemed like a good one to throw in there as well. And he's at minus 225. You put that all together. Look at that, the dream team. Look at that, Peterson there. Great picture. And that is at a whopping plus 494. Good Lord. And need I remind everybody that I am actually more accurate, statistically speaking, at picking a Grand Slam than I am at picking a triple play. I am, what was it, 7-5? 7-5 at picking the Grand Slams here. So those are pretty insane odds for something that I'm 7-5 at. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not making any promises, obviously, but that's the dream team this week. That's the Grand Slam. We've got 2 bets left, and that begins with the top dog, the best underdog of the week. And there's honestly, I mean, there were a lot of close fights on there. I mean, I only gave out 7 edges, by the way, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Which means that there are a lot of underdogs, I think, on this card that have a good chance of winning. But to me, the one guy on this card that has a pretty good shot, just based on the style, it's my man, Drew Dober there. I really think he's got a pretty good shot at winning this one. I mean, like I said, Moicano knocked out 3 times in the UFC. You know, could be a 4th one here. He does get hit, Drew Dober. Trust me, you don't want to get hit by the Doberman. You don't want to get bit there. So I'm picking him for the dog of the week, plus 162. Feeling good about it. And do I even need to remind you, my record 8-3 on the top dogs. Don't want to blow my own horn, but you know, we've done well in the past. Hopefully that continues again with my man, the Doberman. Finally, the last bet, and then we can all go home, is the sniper pick. It's my thing. I was going to come up with another word, but thing was the only word that came to mind. It's my flagship bet. It's the sniper pick. This is the one I'm most confident about on the entire card. And it is Thomas Peterson this time. I know I said before that I was not going to do this with somebody making their debut, but I was so impressed by what I saw in the tape and the lack of impressing content on Pogue's side that I had to go with Thomas Peterson. And minus 175, by the way, I believe that might actually be the lowest odds we've ever had for a sniper pick. So that's pretty cool. And what I'm going to do is, and this was actually another thing that I forgot to put on here, because the other bets, I don't write the units on there. It's the same every time. I just put 1 unit on all of them. Actually, I do half a unit on the Grand Slam. It actually says that in the description below, how that's done. I should probably write that here, but I always have a different number of units for the sniper pick. This one specifically. Did not put this in here because it was the first. It's my first time doing this. I just forgot to put it on there. I am putting down 7? Was it 7? 7 units, I believe. 7 units on Mr. Thomas Peterson to get me the win here, which is a profit of 4 units, which would be the highest profit I've ever had on a single sniper pick. So hopefully Thomas Peterson can get it done for us here and bring us home our first big win with all the new graphics and such. Hopefully that is what happens here, but that is it. That is it for today. I don't know if I can switch this back to the other view. Doesn't look like it. Hold on. Oh my goodness. Embarrassing. You'll see what I mean in a sec when I actually get it going. Or not. What the fuck? Hold on. Where's my desk? Oh my goodness. What? Transition, maybe? Oh, there it is. And of course the camera doesn't work again, so that's fun. My goodness. I really don't like the way this has turned out. There we go. Okay. And there we go. I'm back. We fixed it. I don't know why it's doing that. I really don't. Because like I said, I did video game streaming for over a year and I never had that problem once switching between scenes. I don't know why it's happening now. But we got it working eventually. Back to my desk. I love it here. Thanks for watching, everybody. That was a bit of a clunky first episode, but hey, we got it done. We got through all the bets. Everything in the PowerPoint worked properly. Everything looked good. Just a couple details here and there that we need to iron out. Hopefully the bets work out too. I feel pretty good about it. We'll see. But yeah, oh shit, I think I got a notification that my KFC is here now too. My god, the timing is perfect. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. I also need to work on this outro because clearly I'm bad at this part of it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Enjoy the UFC and Road to UFC, which is on right after the UFC this week. Don't miss it. The Road to UFC is fucking awesome.